Hello, June. Hello, audience.
Hello, everyone. I just hope all of you've had a safe and a happy Diwali. And yes, as promised, myself and Funny, we are back. Myself, June. We are back yet once again with another episode on adult learning and adult teaching. So, Funny, I hope you had a great Diwali,
Oh, yes, a wonderful Diwali without pollution.
noiseless Diwali. So did I, and it was a great one for a change. And yeah, less pollution. So, um, back again with another episode of adult learning, as I just mentioned, and we promised in our previous video when I spoke about the components and the principles of adult teaching. So, I hope viewers you benefited from the principles and how adults learn the techniques, and even with the story that has been narrated to you in regards to how the learning cycle takes place. So Funny, I know that you are really interested, and you have always been interested in teaching adults primarily. So
Yes.
what do you think that adults, when they come to learn English, what are the kind of topics that they are mostly interested in?
Well, I believe adults are always interested in topics related to business contexts like meetings or interviews or something like that. So, why don't we
Oh, okay.
plan a lesson
Yes.
related to that?
Wow. Well, that's exactly what was on my mind. Yes, of course, adults are quite focused and mostly in business context. However, adults, let's say if they're going to a different country, then they also want to learn English, not just from the business point of view, but for their day-to-day functioning as well. So, topics like even visiting to a mall or a bus station or a grocery store or vacation and photography and tourism are quite popular topics to teach adults. But as you mentioned that that they are more focused uh, when it comes to a business English, especially when they want to learn for a professional reason. So yes, so today's topic is a job interview and how you can prepare adults to appear in the job interview, especially to the ones who are striving to learn better English. So, viewers, before we start this lesson, just another few words that I would like to share with you. That this is an example, okay, and there are many, many examples on adult learners as in lesson plans. However, when we discuss this particular lesson plan, this is just to let you know that your future lesson plan need not be exactly following the same format. What is important is that you understand a flow of a lesson plan and how a lesson is planned. And this also reminds me that if you have not watched our previous videos on how to plan a lesson and a component of lesson, please watch the videos, and for that you like and subscribe our channel so that you get the notifications each time we release the video. All right, so here we start. So preparation for job interview, and this is again a very popular topic, and yeah, uh, very much in demand as well. So if you see the skills that will be covered in this lesson is primarily speaking and listening and reading. Okay, writing is there. However, this lesson really doesn't focus too much on the syntactics of the writing, because whenever you are preparing a lesson focusing on a skill, see, none of the skill you can focus in an isolation. Like for example, if my lesson plan focuses primarily on listening skill, then one receptive skill will be followed by one productive skill, which is speaking. However, in my lesson plan, there might be a little scope for my students to even write, but that does not mean that my lesson plan also has a focus on writing skill as well, because no skill can be taught in an isolation. Material used, yeah, blackboard worksheet for students. However, you can also go about with this lesson plan if you're teaching online. So in that case, you can make a PowerPoint if you need be, or you can also write it while you are giving the lecture. webinar on the smart board, you can do that. Level is from intermediate to advanced. Now, why I said advanced? Because in a language institutions, you will have different level of learners. So we hardly talk about advanced learners, right? Because they are already advanced and not much that you have to do. Now, when I say that this lesson plan is from intermediate to advanced, that means you can actually tweak this lesson. You can use this lesson plan for learners who are at the intermediate level. You can modify it, and you can also add few elements. You can make it a little bit more challenging, keeping the format of the lesson plan the same, and you can just increase one or two activities more, or maybe you can make the questions or certain areas of this lesson plan a little bit more challenging for advanced learners. Time limit is from 45 minutes to 1 hour. Okay. Now, the first part, the introduction, the most important part. I have started saying that introduce the topic to the students. However, don't just say that today's topic is job interview. Please remember, always set a context. Okay, maybe you can show them a picture and let them identify the context and elicit the answer from them, that what is it that they can see from the picture, what is it that they feel it is happening in the picture. So you elicit the responses from these direct questions. So when you elicit the topic job interview, then talk about it and talk about the importance of job interview, and then you can ask students, some more questions so that you can actually build the environment. If you want, you can also draw a mind map on the board. However, these are the questions that will help you to actually, get their schema more ignited, and it will also help the learners to be more focused and alert in regards to the topic. So, for example, questions like, have you ever had a job interview before? So you will have the responses, and you can choose a student and you can say, okay, what was it like? Not necessary that they will have to say it in an elaborate manner, maybe in one word, maybe in one sentence. And then followed by questions like, what's important during a job interview? What do you think is the most important aspect in a job interview is? Then how do you dress in a job interview? And do your skills and personalities really matter? Do you think they are important? Then what type of questions would usually an employers might ask in the job interview? So this brainstorm session, that can be a part, it's like a brainstorming, as well as you're building up on the topic. So this whole thing is like a warmer and context setting, both amalgamated, and students are still relaxed and they are sharing their experiences if they've had. Okay. So that should be done in good amount of 10 minutes. And I think that's a good time. Okay, now part two. Now, so there is a worksheet over here. So you can hand out this worksheet and we will look into the worksheet. So, what the worksheet is all about and what does it have. So you have to explain the worksheet, and then you explain the differences between an employer and the applicant. So what is an applicant? Who is this applicant? Who is an employer? And the worksheet, you will see that, there are two questions in each section. So you can go over the first two questions in each sections for practice. Then you may choose to write a sample answer. I would say do write a sample answer on the blackboard, okay, for the students to see and copy down. For online teaching, you can have it on the PowerPoint, okay, and you can show them the slide. Then, when the students finish the worksheet, working in pairs. Once again, if you see working in pairs, why this has been mentioned. So language learners are always far more comfortable when they are working in a group or in a pair. Okay, so it's always a good idea, unless you see maybe if in a class, if you have 6 7 students, perhaps you can ask them to fill it in individually. But I would still suggest, and even we have seen in the reality also, and from our experiences, we can tell you that pair work always helps. So Funny, could you just show us the worksheet?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so this is the worksheet, and we are going to see it soon. That's right. All right, so if you can see, it says job interview worksheet, okay? And then there is introduction, the employer. So who is the employer and who is the applicant? As I've mentioned that you need to define that and ensure that your learners have got the concept clear. Then the employer's question. So here it says that write an answer for each of the employer's question. And as suggested, you will have to write, you may choose 2 questions. Let's say, tell me about yourself, introduce yourself, and why would you like to work for this company. So as a facilitator, you may choose to write these 2 answers. You can show them on the PowerPoint if if you are taking an online class, even in the classroom as well. You can use the PowerPoint, or you may write it on the whiteboard, and based on that, that format, that sentence structure, that will help them to fill in the rest of the questions. However, a small suggestion, let's say if we are working with advanced learners, then just the teacher verbalizing is good enough. If it is an intermediate, then probably what I would do, I would actually make a sample answer for all the questions that's there on this sheet. Okay, Funny, I hope you are you are actually making a note on this point. So lower the level of their English is, so I would ensure that they have an opportunity to see more examples. So once they have all the examples in front of them, then it always becomes way easy, and they feel comfortable at the same time to uh, write their own answers, especially if they are paired, then they're all the more comfortable. Okay, so this is the first sheet of the job interview worksheet, and this is the second one, and this starts with that write 3 more questions that an employer would ask. Again, as a teacher, it's always good to give some example. You can tell your learners that if you feel that these are the questions that you are also thinking of, and that comes to your head spontaneously, you may write these questions. However, if there are more questions that you have had experienced in the past, please do write that as well. Then the applicant's question, again, if you see that there are questions, and similarly, you may write the answer, another example for them, and then they can write on their own, looking at the example, following the format. And finally, the section says write 3 more questions that an applicant would ask. So this is a clear and self-explanatory worksheet. Okay, and that's how you should go about when you're using it in the classroom. So yes, so for this, that if you see, the time limit is 20 minutes. And that's a good time because they would already have the examples, okay, in front of them. And if they're already advanced learners, it really wouldn't take much time for them to write their answers on their own. But again, in that case, you must give them an example verbally, if not in writing. Okay, so now after this stage, let's look what are you going to do next. Okay, so let's see the part 3 of this lesson. Okay, so part three, if you see, we have focused entirely on role play, and this is so imperative and so effective as well. Okay. Here, once the worksheet is complete, so what you do is now you can, have each pair split up, and one student from each pair, okay, you can decide who will be an employer. So you can just name it as AB, and then you can say, okay, all the A's would be an employer and all the B's are the applicants, okay? Or you can just give them numbers and random, like 1 2 1 2 1 2. I would say don't actually wait for them to choose as who's going to be an employer or an applicant, because this often leads to waste of time in the classroom. They cannot decide themselves. So from my experience, I would say that you as a facilitator or trainer or a teacher, you just do this numbering, and whoever gets to gets to be whatever they have to be, they just have to be, because later on, they will have to also switch the role. So it doesn't really matter. So then what happens is, so all the employer, they will form their own company and they remain seated, and the applicants, they must all remain, stand up, and so once all the company names have been created, the students will go around to each of the employer and they will try and find out more information, okay, about the companies. And after that, the company will then ask each applicant the questions as well. And remember, this is where the worksheet that which they have completed will actually come into the picture. And that's why that worksheet was important before this role play was started. So 20 minutes again. And within that 20 minutes, you will have to ensure that the learners are, they just don't uh, kind of spend whole 20 minutes with one company and with one applicant, because they need to actually go around and they need to keep changing. So it's all about, okay, so how many companies did you go to, right? So that should be the objective. So how many companies did they go to, what are the information they have found about the companies, and similarly, as an employer, how many applicants did they interview? Okay. Yes, Fanny. So, and finally is the revision, and that is that the students can talk about, so which company did they like the most, and can they call it as a favorite company and why, and who had the best interview, and then have the applicants and the students share some of the interview highlights, and it's a good actually fun discussion how you end it. However, here is a small note for further practice and suggestions, that is for their homework, where the students create or update their resumes. And this is the time when the resumes, okay, something far more practical, so they can update, they can work on their resume, and have them to bring this resume into the class. Okay, so this is more important, and then they can share some highlights and edit them using their peer feedback. So talking about the resume and after they have updated and bringing into the classroom is also another important aspect. And one more thing, if you want, you can also split this lesson into over 2 days as well. If you want to extend, and if you feel that you can add more sections to it, that which will be more effective and more, it can be more fun, you are more than welcome to do so. But if you have just if you have noticed the flow of the lesson, it all started with brainstorming, some very prominent and direct questions that will help the learners to ignite the schemata, and good 10 solid minutes for the lesson to build. And the second part itself, there was a worksheet that which they had to solve. However, if you are creating a lesson on your own, or even over the internet, you will find so many lessons, it need not follow the same pattern. For example, if you want to use the same lesson, you may use it the way it has been shown here, or you may even change a bit, and maybe in part 2 you might also want to do something else. But whatever you do, just keep in mind that it should have a good sequence, right? So if you see that first they had to fill it in a worksheet, and even for that the teacher had to give them a good example. They were actually taught about the concept of the employer and the applicant or employee. And then there was this writing a bit which came into the picture with good, examples mentioned, and then the role play. So, instead, if you want to do something else, please ensure that you, as the trainer or a teacher, you are giving them enough time, or you explaining them enough, okay? And if you want them to complete something for you, ensure that you have exemplified enough, and your part 3 will follow whatever they did in part 2. So there should be a good connectivity between all the parts. So that's very important. So you can have something on your own prepared, but each part should be linked to the part before. All right, viewers. So I hope you really enjoyed this lesson as much we enjoyed, discussing about it. So, Funny, what do you have to say?
Oh, yes, that's a very detailed explanation of how to be a facilitator along with being a trainer or a teacher. I got one lesson plan
Great.
for my class ready.
I'm sure my viewers have also got one lesson plan already ready. Okay, you can use it. It's all good to go. And yes, I must say that I did find it on this lesson plan on the internet, and I found it very effective. What happens is that there are many useful resources on the internet, but not all of us are tech savvy, and not all of us can really figure it out. What can be very beneficial and right, because to find out the right thing using the right keyword is also an art. So I thought, when I got hold of these lessons, I thought, why not make a video on it? Because sometimes just looking at it and somebody explaining makes a lot more sense than reading the lesson on your own. So we are going to come back with another such a lesson, okay, with a different topic very soon. So please do like this video. Please do subscribe, and don't forget to share your valued feedback on the comment section. And on that note, bye for now. Thank you, Funny, for joining us.
All right, bye bye.